The sun was sinking low behind the jagged hills of the frontier, casting long amber shadows across the dry land. Dust swirled lazily in the warm evening wind as Daniel Hayes tightened the last wooden plank on his ranch fence. Life out here was never easy, just him, his horses, and miles of silence stretching in every direction. No neighbors, no town nearby, only the harsh rhythm of survival. But Daniel had chosen this life, far from war, far from people, or so he thought. That evening felt different. His horse suddenly stirred, snorting nervously. Daniel turned, eyes narrowing toward the distant ridge. At first, he thought it was just heat shimmer playing tricks, but then he saw her. A figure. Huge. Walking slowly, almost collapsing with each step. As she drew closer, Daniel's breath caught in his throat. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. A towering Apache woman, at least a head taller than any man he knew, her presence both powerful and broken. Her skin was marked with dust and faint streaks of dried blood. Her long dark hair clung to her face, and her eyes, sharp, deep, and exhausted, locked onto his. For a moment, time froze. Daniel knew the stories. Everyone did. Apache warriors were fierce, relentless. And strangers, rarely welcomed. His instinct screamed at him to grab his rifle. But something else stopped him. She wasn't a threat. She was dying. Without a word, she stumbled forward and collapsed just outside the fence. Daniel hesitated. This was the kind of decision that could cost a man his life. Help her, and risk everything. Walk away, and live with it forever. He made his choice. Slowly, carefully, he approached her, keeping his hands visible. She didn't move, only watched him through half-closed eyes. He reached for his water canteen, uncorked it, and held it out. "Easy, I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. For a second, she didn't react. Then, with surprising strength, her hand shot up and grabbed the canteen. She drank deeply, water spilling down her chin, her breathing slowly stabilizing. The tension in her shoulders eased, just a little. Daniel stepped back, giving her space. That night, he let her rest in his barn. He cleaned her wounds as best he could, though she barely spoke. The only thing she gave him was a name. Dakota. It meant, friend to everyone. Daniel didn't know why that stayed with him, but it did. By morning, she was gone. No footprints. No sign. Just silence. Daniel stood in the empty barn, confused. For a moment, he wondered if he had imagined the whole thing. But the used bandages and empty canteen told him otherwise. He shrugged it off and went about his morning chores. Then he saw it. At first, it was just movement on the hills. Then more. And more. His heart dropped. Hundreds of riders. No, thousands. They lined the hills in massive formations, circling, closing in. Dust clouds rose into the sky as horses stamped and shifted. Every rider was armed. Every face was turned toward him. 300 Apache warriors, maybe more. Daniel's pulse thundered in his ears. This was it. He had heard stories like this before, settlers wiped out, ranches burned, no survivors. His hands trembled as he stepped into the center of his corral. There was nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. He stood alone. The riders began to move. Slowly at first, then with purpose, they descended the hills, forming a tightening circle around his ranch. The ground seemed to shake beneath the weight of hooves. Dust filled the air, turning the sunlight into a hazy golden glow. Daniel swallowed hard. "This is how it ends," he muttered. The circle closed. Silence fell. Not a single arrow was drawn. Not a single gun fired. Then, from the front line, one rider stepped forward. And Daniel recognized her instantly. Dakota. But she was no longer weak or broken. She sat tall and powerful on her horse, her presence commanding absolute respect. The warriors around her bowed their heads slightly as she passed. She wasn't just one of them. She was their leader. Daniel's mind raced. What had he done? Why were they here? Dakota stopped just a few feet away from him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The tension was unbearable. Then, slowly, she dismounted. Every warrior watched. Every eye was on them. She walked toward Daniel, her expression unreadable. He held his ground, though every instinct told him to step back. When she reached him, she did something no one expected. She bowed her head. A deep, respectful bow. A ripple of murmurs spread through the warriors. Daniel stood frozen. "I was dying," she said softly. "You gave me life." Her voice was calm, strong. I am not just Apache, she continued. I am the daughter of our chief. These warriors, they follow me. Daniel's breath caught. You showed kindness when you had every reason not to, she said. In our way, that is a debt that cannot be ignored. She raised her hand. Instantly, the warriors dismounted in unison. 300 Apache warriors, bowing to him. Daniel felt something shift inside him, fear giving way to something else. Something deeper. Respect. Connection. Dakota looked up at him, a faint smile touching her lips. From this day, she said, you are under our protection. The words echoed in the vast silence. No attack. No destruction. Only honor. The riders slowly began to disperse, the massive circle dissolving as they returned to the hills. Within minutes, the valley was quiet again, as if nothing had happened. Daniel stood there, stunned, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. One act of kindness had changed everything. Dakota mounted her horse once more, pausing for a final glance. Our people remember, she said. And then she was gone. Daniel looked out over the empty hills, his world forever altered. Out here, where survival ruled and trust was rare, he had learned something powerful. Sometimes, the smallest act creates the biggest legacy. And if this story moved you, if you felt that moment of tension, honor, and humanity, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because out here, in stories like these, every choice matters, and the next story might be even more unforgettable.